it for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the spot!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida TB. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Thursday, May 2nd. Thank you for watching on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. In all transparency, once again, this was pre-recorded just a little bit earlier than the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Boston Bruins, which started at 8 p.m. And so at the time of this uploading here at 10 p.m., the game is probably at least 30, 40 minutes away from actually being over. So who knows what's happening there. So we're not going to talk about it because, once again, this was recorded before the game. But everyone wants to watch the playoff games, and so we have to take our collaborators when they are available to us and when we are available to them. And that's the way it went down. This show is brought to you in part by 3 or 4 sponsors, which we're going to get to 2 right away, right off the bat, one of which is Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different when it comes to transport companies. Several years in a row right now, recognized by some of Canada's leaders as, one of the best transport companies in the country to work for. And I'm very proud to say that some of the people behind that operation are friends of mine. I'm talking about Mike Cinquino, Sean Gerard, David Grassi, and their terrific staff. The list goes on and on. Also brought to you in part by La Bitta TB, winner of a dozen international awards. La Bitta TB offers quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. La Bitta TB, embrace your true nature. Without further ado, he is the co-host of the Recruits Draftcast podcast. He is also the owner and founder of recruits.ca, a website where you'll have an independent scout like Greg McCagg and some of his people working for you who will put out terrific articles, interviews, mock drafts, scouting reports, everything you need to get prepared for the draft, which you can pick up at a monthly fee. And if you stick with it yearly, it'll cost you less than $50 a year, less than $4 a month, less than $50 a year. It's your one-stop shop. It's a great tool and to have so that you can go and check. And there's a lot of information, a lot of data there. Without further ado, let's bring him up. Mr. Instat, Mr. Y-Scout, Mr. Local Rink, Mr. Rink anywhere near you. There he is. Grant McCagg. How you doing, bud?
Hey, Tony. Doing well.
All right, so thank you. It was a couple of weeks ago with the Canadian season over now by several weeks that, and we're going 12 months a year, that one of the things we said, okay, you know what? Why don't we do a report card per show? That'll give us at least 20 report cards, maybe 23. Plus, we can do a report card for the coach. Plus, we can do a report card for the management team. Who knows? We might get to about 25 report cards. And let's try and keep it as interesting as we can for those who are watching and those who are listening. So one of the ideas I had was throwing out a couple of comparables for that one player that we're going to touch on the report card. We take a look at some of the players who made it to the round of 16 playoffs this year and maybe, see how they match up or don't match up with those players and their respective positions. So Craig Button has already done 2 report cards for us, one on the management team, which he gave an A, another one to Nick Suzuki, which he also gave an A. Eric Engels did Caden Gooley, who he gave a B+. And you know what? I said, who better to call than Grant McCagg if I'm going to talk about Juraj Slafkovsky, because he's probably the first one who told the hockey world easy up on the Shane Wright talk. I don't see it, and I think it's going to be Slafkovsky, and it should be Slafkovsky. And guess what? It was Slafkovsky, and at one point when he had a couple of hiccups, like everyone else in that draft class did, by the way, some people said, I'm not so sure. And then all of a sudden he turned it around, probably coincided with going on a line with Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. And then all of a sudden his entire season turned around. He finished, as we know, with 20 goals, 30 assists, 50 points, which obviously is a huge upgrade from the season that he had 1 year ago, where he was decimated with an injury, of course, and he only played 39 games 1 year ago and had 4 goals, 6 assists, 10 points. So he scored 5 times the goals, 5 times the assists, 5 times the points, and just over 2 times more the games. So what does the report card look like? Here it is. Look at that. Look how nice it is. There's the report card. Name, Juraj Slafkovsky. Position, right wing. Mind you, he could also play left wing because he's a left-handed shot. Games played, 82. Goals, 20. Assists, 30. Points, 50. Plus minus, he was a minus 19. Give a grade from A to F. Grant, there's so much on Slafkovsky, I don't even know where to start. So if you want to start me somewhere, please go ahead, because I could be coming at you from 1,000 different directions here. Actually, I know where to start. Last year, one of the things that had me very worried is I saw him get tagged a couple of times, one of which was from Neeson of Carolina. He caught him with his head down. He hit him hard, and everyone knows that can happen to anybody. It happened a couple of times, to the point where I was like, oh, man, this guy's the Canadiens' first pick overall. The last thing I want this kid is getting concussed at the age of 18. And you know what? It might take a while for his career to actually get going then, because, concussions set you back and you want to protect your asset. And I'm starting to wonder if the Canadiens made the right move to have him in the National Hockey League at just 18 years of age, which is the best hockey league in the world. We know that. I was very pleased to see that 1 year ago in the offseason, take a look at this picture with him with the glasses. So he's training back in the motherland, and those glasses are kind of like a virtual reality. You see objects right away pop at you up close, and then you have to read and you have to react, and the objects come very close to you very fast. And so your read and react has to be faster than usual. Obviously, somebody, maybe more than one person, recognized he needs to work on this. And he put in the time and he put in the work. And he did it with other things too. But Grant, you see this. What does this say to you?
Dedication. He, it's one of the reasons why they took him first overall. They loved the character and thought that he would do everything in his power to become a better player, that there was work to do. But also, it shows his humility that, he realized, it was easy to do, that he didn't have a great rookie season, and that there needed to be some improvements, and he did everything in his power in the off season to address those things. And it paid off certainly in the second half of this year.
Let's take a look at his hockey DB for a second, if we can, Grant. You know what? We don't have it right now. But, okay. Here's a guy who, prior to joining the Canadiens, played 31 games with TPS Turku in the regular season, played 18 games in the playoffs, played World Championships, played Olympics. But it's far from 82 games in the National Hockey League and far from at that level. I think we can agree, even though he was playing against men in all of those competitions. One of the things that happens with a lot of young players, Grant, you know better than I do, is that they, quote unquote, hit a wall at some point. They're not used to playing those 82 games. They're not used to playing at that intensity. They're not used to playing at that level. They're not used to taking all those hits, and they get tired. And when you get tired, You fall down a lot. When you get tired, your brain shuts off a bit, correct? And you end up making mistakes. You end up giving away the puck. There's a bunch of things that happen when you get tired. I was also very pleased to hear and see, and I think it was Nicolas Cloutier of TVA Sports that came out with an article once again last summer and put up that picture of him wearing the glasses, that's not all that they worked on. They also worked on changing his breathing techniques. They also worked on improving his lung capacity. These are things that are not often talked about, but they're success doesn't happen overnight. There's things that you got to do to have success. And, it's funny, Grant, because when he went into his first training camp with the Canadiens, and I'm sure you remember this, I think it was the Habs TV put up footage behind the scenes of him on the bike. Yeah. And we all thought he broke the bike. Like I don't think we've ever seen a hockey player manhandle a bike the way he did. Like the pedaling that he did on that bike. I mean, he beat the bike at its own game. It was something remarkable. But a bike is a bike and the ice is the ice and the game is the game. He did hit a wall. Like he did seem to run out of gas, even though he only played 39. He did seem to shut off. He didn't seem to lose his legs at one point. To change your breathing techniques, you talked about dedication and having a great team behind you. He's not the only one putting in the work, but he's obviously consulting specialists who are able to identify what he needs help on. And to change a breathing technique at age 18, 19, probably not an easy thing to do. There's probably some level of adjustment there. And you know what? It's probably not everyone who wants to do it.
Yeah, it gets back to the dedication, Tony. I noticed last season, and I brought it up on your show a couple of times, that you noticed on the bench at the end of shifts, he was just, breathing really heavily. Like, Caulfield and Suzuki or whoever his line mates, I guess last year it wasn't those two, but they'd be beside him and they'd be breathing normally. And he was, so there was work to do on his stamina and endurance. You jump to the NHL, and I think partly too is just that he's so nervous and excited and over breathing maybe improperly because of that excitement and nerve. And I think he needed to learn to relax a little bit more. And hopefully the breathing techniques that he did, the work that he did help with that. And we saw this year that he wasn't breathing nearly as heavily on the bench. He could play full shifts and not get tired. He was still competing at the end of long shifts even. So definitely it was something that I think needed to be worked on. It was smart of the Canadiens. I'm sure they had a part in it, that they identified this and maybe even recommended. I don't know, I don't know who all was in on that, but I'm sure the Canadiens identified it and asked him to work on it, and he did.
Grant, I don't know how much his lung capacity improved by the time the season started. What I do know, after reading the piece that Nicolas Cloutier put out back on the 13th of July, so I need you to think about this for a second. I think the Canadian season started, the regular season started like on the 11th of October. So from 13th of July to 11th of October, I think you're like 3 months minus a couple of days, okay? So 3 months prior to the puck dropping on opening night, and maybe it was not the 11th, maybe it was the 7th. So anyway, let's just say 3 months minus a week, okay? Let's just say 11 weeks. 11 weeks prior to the Canadiens playing their first regular season game, his lung capacity had already improved by 20%. By the 13th of July, his lung capacity had improved by 20%. So at the very least, it stays at 20. At the very best, it probably goes up to 30% by the time they drop the puck on opening night. That's a considerable improvement.
Yeah.
And you talked about dedication. the harder you work at it, the more that lung capacity is obviously going to improve. That's a lot of dedication, Grant.
Definitely. Maybe he stopped smoking. I don't know, but that's
it doesn't seem like the type that did. But then again, I know of a couple of hockey players who did, and they had a fairly long career.
Yeah, the flower wasn't bad.
Yeah. There was a Montreal Canadiens defenseman that carved out a 15 to 20-year career in the National Hockey League who was very good at what he did, who smoked regularly. You know that?
Is that right, eh? I'm sure there was more than one back in the day. Who are we talking about?
Andrei Markov smoked.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah. Andrei Markov.
Old school Russian.
Yeah, and listen, he did pretty well for himself.
Yeah,
huh?
No, there's been it's been a lot of heavy smokers that did a lot of great things in their day, but thankfully it's pretty much a thing. I would imagine there's not more than 5% of NHLers that smoke. It's not recommended.
No, it's definitely not recommended. NeuroTracker. NeuroTracker is a device which helps you work on your cognitive, and he did that as well. So, we're just reporting, not even reporting. It's Nicola Klutzy who did. So we're picking up on his terrific story back in the 13th of July of a year ago. But some of the things, wearing those glasses, having objects come at you very, very quick, having to improve your read and reacts at a different pace. Working with the NeuroTracker and working on your cognitive, changing your breathing techniques, improving your lung capacity, not to mention, the skating, the stick handling, not to mention, all the times that we saw him this season on the ice for 35 and 40 minutes after practice with Dr. Schott in his first season with Adam Nicholas. This season we saw him with Dr. Schott. We probably saw him with Adam as well. I don't know if I've seen a Canadiens player in how long work as hard to improve his game off season and on season more than Slafkovsky.
Yeah. And that's a first overall pick. You look at it reminds you of guys like McKinnon and Crosby in that regard, where they didn't rest on their laurels getting picked first overall. They, like Crosby, I mean, the stories of his off seasons when he got, when he first joined it, running wind sprints on the beach. I don't know if you've ever run on a beach before, Tony, but it's not easy to do.
I have a hard time walking on a beach. Yeah. I usually end up twisting my ankle, but no, you're well documented, Grant. And, some guys, when they come into the National Hockey League and they're first overall, they're like, I'm first overall and look at me. And you talked about, you don't have to go all out because you figure you're so much better than everyone else. And we've seen guys who ended up being, I wouldn't call them busts, but close to it, where they clearly did not play to their potential. And that's probably one of the reasons where they just, when you get to the best league in the world, if you're not going to work, they're all going to pass you. That's just the way it is.
Yakupov would be a good example of that, I think.
Nail Yakupov would be a very good example of that. I would say that, Alex Galchenyuk had his demons. Probably that's more so the reason for his downfall than because I would imagine that he worked pretty hard. We know that his dad trained him. Speaking of on the beach, we saw quite a few videos and stuff like that. But it's also the lifestyle you choose, right? Juraj Slafkovsky is in a very dangerous city as far as lifestyle is concerned. And you know what? He's not out and about. You don't hear the stories.
Right.
He stays home. His parents have done an amazing job with him to have him stay grounded. And by the way, the Canadiens have done an amazing job too. 10, 15, 20 years ago, a lot of Montreal players got burned by Montreal and its temptations.
Yeah.
The Canadiens in the last year or so have hired, let's put it this way, someone who goes out when they go out, and who correct, yeah, that would be a good term, yeah, and allows them to be regular people, and enjoy a good meal and enjoy a good beverage or two, but at one point, if it's that person doesn't make it get out of hand.
Right.
So, good for the Canadians. I think it's brilliant. I think it's long overdue. And he's everything you want in a player that you're going to make your first pick overall, in terms of, if you're not a generational talent, and it doesn't seem like he is just yet, a la Crosby, a la McKinnon, a la McDavid. Maybe one day he will be, maybe he won't, and that'll be okay too. He could still end up being a franchise player. He's everything you want. You want a guy that's going to be a team player, team-oriented, but at the same time have a lot of pride in their individual work. You brought up on more than one occasion when he scored a goal or two and they lost, you don't see him smile.
Yeah.
You don't see him fist pump. You see him go to the bench, head down. All right, guys, let's go. Come back. Let's go. But not putting himself ahead of the team. That's an amazing quality that, once again, not everyone has, Grant.
Yeah, he's very unselfish. And that Marty brought that up at one point in one of his press conferences, just how unselfish he is. He made a point of it without being prompted. And you see that body language. It's one of the things that, as a scout, that we look at in the draft year. We look at how a guy reacts to scoring, how he reacts, how his teammates react to him, how he is on the bench, how he reacts to adversity and all that. And those were all check marks with Slafkovsky in his draft year. And we're seeing it now at the NHL level.
We're also seeing it, Grant, if we hadn't seen it already, that let's just say if Slafkovsky doesn't turn out to be the best pick of that draft, okay? Let's just say 10, 15 years from now, he's not the best pick. He's probably the third best pick, whatever. At least we're seeing, Grant, we can understand more now, and I know that you got it a year and a half ago, but we can all understand more now that he was the logical pick at that point in time. On that note, here's Pierre Maguire, who joined me several weeks ago on the Sick Podcast, talking about he liking the Slafkovsky pick going into the draft as well. Better?
Yeah, but that's why when they took Slafkovsky, I know a lot of, and this is not a knock on anybody because I'm a fan of the kid. He's doing really well in Arizona right now. Everybody's like, Logan Cooley. I'm just telling you right now, I was doing the draft for a television network, and I said, no, they got to get big, man. They need big people. And it's like, as much as I think Logan Cooley's a really good player and an awesome kid, and he's all of those things, I don't think he's ever going to be as durable as Slafkovsky is. I don't think he's going to create as much mayhem as Slafkovsky does.
So, Grant, and Pierre, once again, to his credit, he was doing work for a television network on that night that was broadcasting the draft. And he did say that he liked the pick very much, and this was going to help the Canadians speed up their whole rebuild. My question to you, though, is I have an interesting one. And that is that when he said they need to get big, we always hear draft the best player available, right? Is he saying that they drafted for need as much as they drafted best player available, or just so happened that he was both?
It was probably both. I mean, when you're making your list, I think you factor in need. So best player available for your team, right? I mean, it could be that they had Cooley, Nemec, and Wright close with Slafkovsky as far as a grade goes before you factor in need. But you look at Slafkovsky, character, size, physicality, all things that the Canadians needed. Now, if they'd had Cooley considerably ahead of Slafkovsky in their rankings, they probably would have gone with Cooley. He doesn't bring those things necessarily, but they would have had him ranked enough of a difference in their talent and their upside that they would have ranked Cooley. They would have taken Cooley, but it's obvious that they didn't have Cooley ranked ahead before they looked at need, or if they did, it was minuscule. So you have to factor in, especially if it's players that are really different. Like if it's three guys that are all similar players, you go with the best player available because they're similar in size and style and that. But there was a big contrast in the guys, right? And when they look at it, said, well, we've got these guys close, but Slafkovsky is exactly what we need. And you try to, when you're NHL scouting, teams are often say, well, slot him in what you think he'll be and what you think he'll be on our team in 3 to 5 years. And, Montreal, and I said it at the time, I see him being the perfect complement to Suzuki and Caulfield. So I'm sure when they were doing their projections and looking at it and saying, yes, he's going to be a first line winger on the Canadians. And if it's with if it's with Caulfield and Suzuki, he's the perfect complement for them too. He's the guy that'll get the puck in the corner. He's the guy that'll back check hard every shift. He's the guy that will be physical. He's the guy that can bring the other elements to make that line complete. So they were just
and balance out a line that has a winger who's 5'8" and a centerman who's 5'11". Now you add another winger who's 6'4", and all of a sudden, you know what? You end up becoming a 6-foot line when you probably wouldn't have been if he's not there, right?
Right, exactly.
So, I know at one point you were calling for they got to get Slafkovsky on the power play. And I'm calling for, and you're not the, and I'm not the only one who said this, but I'm like, okay, well, before you take any decision on this kid whatsoever, mind you, they were not going to take any decision, but there was talks of Laval. I'm like, can you put him with Suzuki and Caulfield for 10 games? 10. Yeah. Give him an honest chance, not one. Give him 10 and see what he's able to do. And they put them together, and magic happens. And in Slafkovsky's last 51 games, he picked up 42 points.
It was nice to see. And
42 points in his last 51 games. Wow. 19 years old.
Part of it was they wanted to try to get Anderson going, and it just didn't happen. Marty was maybe overly patient with that, and also patient with Slafkovsky and not feeding him too much too soon, letting him, get used to dominating on a third line, second line situation, playing well enough defensively that they were comfortable with having him in that spot. And, I think if you recall, when they were first put together, they were playing well, but they weren't producing. And then the second time, it clicked right off the bat. They started to produce. They put up really good numbers, and it went from there. It was nice to see.
One of the things I did was I took some names from players that made the playoffs this year, whether it was Eastern Conference or Western Conference, who are pretty big wingers who shoot left and either play left or play right. Okay, so I have some names for you here.
Okay.
Jake Gensel, Matthew Tkachuk, Chris Kreider, Kyle Connor, Mikko Rantanen. Whether they play first line or second line, I think we can all agree like they're first line wingers.
Yeah.
Sometimes doesn't mean because you're not on the first line on your team, you're just trying to create some balance. Does he remind you of one of these players more than the others? Number one, and number two, if these players are going to be on teams, or if Kreider and the Rangers go far, or Rantanen and Colorado goes far, and Gensel and Carolina goes far, or Tkachuk with Florida go far, can Slafkovsky have that kind of impact on a Canadiens team one day? So who does he remind you of most out of these five players that are on or in this graphic?
Yeah, I do find that he's kind of unique, but if there was one, I don't think the other four are good comparisons, but the closest one out of that group for me would be Rantanen.
I agree with you.
Yeah, similar size, European. Kreider's more of a goal scorer than anything. He's not, he's not overly smart. The vision isn't great. There's similarities in their size skating combination, I think. But as far as the way they think the game and the vision, he's closer to Rantanen than the other guys here. Better skater than Tkachuk, obviously more well-rounded than Connor, bigger than Getzel. But if you want it, if you had a checkbox of like 10 things, the closest the one that would check off the most boxes as being the closest would be Rantanen for me.
And I agree with you. And I bring it up because I like Frankie Corrado a lot. He's been on the podcast before. Slafkovsky is I've heard so many different comparables, right? So many names. Everyone's got one, right? And Frankie Corrado, the day after Slafkovsky scored his first NHL hat trick, went on TSN and said, I see Chris Kreider. I see a guy who goes to the net. I see a guy, and he goes, and that's a big compliment. He says Kreider scored 52 goals a couple of years ago. And he's right about that. And I understand the whole big and parking yourself in front of the net and having an ability to deflect pucks, which I think as the season went on, he got better and better at.
Yeah.
So I understand that part of it, but I also understand your part of it. I think he handles the puck better. I think he sees the game better. I think he passes the puck better. Yeah. I see Rantanen. I've seen Rantanen since day one. Think about this.
Me too.
They're both out of the same program with TPS Turku.
Yeah.
They're both left-handed shots. They both are comfortable on either wing, probably even more so comfortable on the right wing. Rantanen is 6'4", Slafkovsky's 6'4". Slafkovsky's probably got about 8 or 9 pounds on Rantanen, maybe. Came into the league with a lot more than that, but that'll probably, they'll probably end up being the same size when all is done and done. If they're probably just a few pounds off right now.
Yeah.
An ability to score goals. I see Rantanen.
Yeah.
I see Rantanen. And you know what? I'm not saying that Slafkovsky is going to put up 55 goals and 50 assists and 105 points because, I love Nick Suzuki, but I don't know if he's ever going to be Nathan McKinnon. And I like Lane Hudson, but these chances are he's probably not going to be Cale Makar, right? So you're not going to have that same support staff. But all it's to say, I see Rantanen. And so do you, huh?
Yeah, I do. I think certainly at the same age, he's a better skater than Rantanen, which is another plus, right? I would classify him as he looks like a Rantanen with better mobility. So
would you say Rantanen has a better shot right now, even though Slafkovsky's shot is underrated? Would you say that Rantanen is probably a notch above?
Oh yeah, but I don't think at 20 his shot was any better. Like it's improved as he's gotten older, and you learn to find the shooting lanes, when to shoot. With experience, he'll become a better goal scorer and a more effective shooter. I think we saw the jump just from the start of this season, Tony, to the end, of how he wasn't shooting enough. He was missing the net. He was getting shots blocked. He wasn't finding the lanes. He was hiccuping when he got the puck and not shooting correctly. Yeah. We saw vast improvement as the season went along. Certainly he can't shoot like Rantanen at 28 or however old he is, but it will improve with time, and hopefully he will be able to score at the pace of a Rantanen. The good thing about it is that he's got, Rantanen has McKinnon beside him, but without Landeskog, they don't necessarily have a Caulfield on the other side either, right? So that down the road, I see Slafkovsky as a point per game guy plus. I think that's his upside, and given everything else that he can bring to the table, that's going to be a heck of an NHLer.
A shout out to Accent Insurance Solutions. All insurance isn't created equal, and you know where to find the right solution for you. Accent Insurance. Accent doesn't sell insurance; they shop it for you to find the right product, right on the money. Whatever your insurance needs, home, automobile, or business, call the Accent team today at 514-363-3636. Get the right solution at the right price. Visit their website at accentassurance.com. All right, it was 13 days ago that Michel Bergeron joined me at the BFL Barry F. Lorenzetti Foundation. It was the Foundation Cup, which was a charity event raising money towards mental health and autism. They raised $150,000. Once again, congrats to Barry Lorenzetti and his team. Susan, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. All right, okay. So I sat down with Le Petit Tigre, Michel Bergeron, and I said, who does he remind you of? And he threw two names that, one, I'm not going to lie to you, like I just don't see at all. But he threw out a name that I thought was interesting, and it's the second time that I hear that name. Let's play that for you.
A few names.
Tell me.
Marianosa.
Marianosa is a Hall of Famer.
And the one who I like the most is Mark Messier. But not tougher like Messier, because Messier was mean. He was cross-checking the guy behind. But I don't think Slav will be like this. But the way he's skating, the way he handles the puck, the way he shoots, Mark Messier looks. He remember Mark Messier without the toughness.
You're talking about a top 10 player in the history of the National Hockey League on everyone's list.
He's going to be a tough player. He's going to be, I think, the best player, the best forward, the Montreal Canadiens.
Okay, I don't see Mark Messier at all. Like Messier could wheel, and Messier could play center, and Messier was tough as nails. So he would elbow you to the face. He was nasty tough, right? Dirty tough. I don't see that at all, but I'll get your opinion on that in a second. Marian Hossa protected the puck really well. Yeah. Had like a 19, 20-year career in the National Hockey League. Is a Hall of Famer. Had 3 seasons with 40-plus goals. But he was probably 6'1", not 6'4". But he was a left-handed shot who was comfortable on the right wing. Max Lapierre has compared Slafkovsky to Marian Hossa before. What did you think of those two names? Did the Messier comparable hit you in the face the way it hit me in the face when he said it?
Well, just the fact that Messier is the center, I think you can't really compare them for that reason. And plus, Messier was 6. I don't think he was much more than 200 pounds, maybe 210 and 6'1". So as far as physical, makeup, he's not comparable. I don't really agree with that. I mean, it'd be great if he was the next Messier, but he'd be getting moved to center if he was. The name I've brought up before, and again, this is, if he reaches his complete upside and he still won't touch him as far as is Jagr. That's the guy that I see. Just his puck protection skills, the size, the vision, the ability to score. He's in that mold. Now, I'm not saying he's the next Jaromir Jagr.
Yeah, no, because Jaromir Jagr's hands were very fast. He could dance you in a phone booth. Yeah. Everyone recalls the goal that he scored as a 19-year-old in the Stanley Cup final versus Chicago, where those moves are unbelievable.
Slav, as he goes along here, you're going to notice has excellent hands too. We only saw a glimpse of it this year, but we saw it at the Olympics on a couple of occasions. And I think as his confidence keeps growing, you're going to see just how slick he can be with the puck too. Again, not in the Jagr, not quite in that stratosphere, but other parts of his game, very close to Jagr as a comp. And I think he's going to be more of a two-way and a rougher player than Jagr. So not a perfect comparison, but if he reaches his complete upside in the Jagr mold, would be where I would place him.
Okay, finishing up here in the next couple of minutes. Here's a stat that came that after he scored his hat trick, or put up the numbers that he did, if we can. A stats graphic. Here we go. The Canadians have given Juraj Slafkovsky a consistent, prominent workload this season. Actually, this is time on ice. Pardon me. So average ice time in October 14-19, November 15-31, December 18-19, January 18-28, February 20-15. March 1913 and April 1837. And this makes sense to me, by the way, because he got better as the season went on. And then in February, he hits his peak. And then all of a sudden after that, trade deadline comes around. And I think they realize they're not making the playoffs and probably get some other guys some ice time. And they bring it down gradually because, you know what? What's the use at this point? So, you know what? It's some real nice ice time for him as the season went on. Once again, he becomes, the youngest Canadians winger in franchise history to score a hat trick in a game. If memory serves me well, I think that's another stat. And there's a couple of other stats in terms of 20 goals at under 21. I think he's in really elite category. But how about this one? Out of all the stats in Montreal Canadiens history, Juraj Slafkovsky and Guy Lafleur are the only two players in Montreal Canadiens history to be 20 years old or less and to have a season of 20-plus goals and 50-plus points. I mean,
isn't that amazing? You'd think in their storied history that there'd be more than that, right?
Gee, it doesn't get more elite than being in company with the late, great Guy Lafleur, right?
And that's why I know when we talked about it, Tony, and I said I haven't been this excited about a homegrown Canadiens prospect since Guy. And I know you mentioned Richer as for you, and you're a little younger than me, so I get that. But as far as just where I think the potential is just sky high. He's the first since Lafleur for me, and it's awfully exciting.
Well, I always love goal scorers, you see. So I mean, I saw Lafleur's, Lafleur was obviously a great goal scorer, even though I didn't see him at his prime. I saw him actually when he was on his decline. And then Richer scored 50 two times in a span of 3 seasons, which got me really, really excited again. Okay, so in ending, a report card. I'm interested. Like, I know it's going to be an awesome grade that you're going to give. I'm just wondering, though, if you'll take off a point anywhere here, and it's because it looks like it's going to be an A, but is it or isn't it?
Well, if I was just grading on factoring in his age, I'd maybe give him an A. But just overall grade as a Hab player this last year, because of the -19, because he was on for a lot of goals against, and that the defense, he's got to still learn not to puck watch as much. And, there's still work to do with the turnovers in the defensive end and have you. I'm going to dock him a half a point and say A-. I think that's a fair mark for him this year. Obviously, if you consider that he's he did it at the age of 19, and that every 19-year-old has things to learn on the defensive end of things, you'd say A, maybe even A+. But I think his overall mark for this season is A-.
He's Grant McCagg of the Recruits Draftcast podcast. You check him out and you sign up to his website at recruits.ca, or not at, but www.recruits.ca. Follow him on Twitter if you can. He's a great follow with a lot of articles, a lot of interviews, a lot of mock drafts, a lot of scouting reports. List goes on and on. Thank you, Grant. We'll talk to you soon, my man.
Thanks, Tony.
The Sick Podcast was brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group. It was brought to you in part by Labita TB. A shout out to Accent Insurance Solutions. And we also partner and are sponsored by Playground with over 30,000 square feet of new gaming, dining, and entertainment space. Time to reacquaint yourself with Playground, world-class sushi, AAA steaks, live shows, and a brand new poker floor, and so much more. Located just over the Messier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. Playground experience, the strip without the trip. Once again, to you, my Sick Army, and to you, my Sick community, I thank you very much for watching. Comment Sick, S-I-C-K, S-I-C-K, and leave me a 5-star review on Apple Reviews. It's my way of feeling the love. For Shane Gaumont and Master Control, I'm Marinaro. We'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place. And by the way, I will be in for Matt O'Hain, who appears is on his way to a bachelor party or something like that. Talk to you again. Have a good night. Cheers. Thanks for watching the Sick Podcast.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaVita TB, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.